Imagine waking up in a steel tube 250 meters beneath the North Atlantic. There is no window. There is no dawn. The only light in the passageway outside your curtain is a dim red glow, and it has been that color for hours because somewhere far above you, out of sight and out of reach, it happens to be night. You are lying in a space roughly 180 centimeters long and 60 wide, and you cannot sit up in it. Behind the bulkhead, a machine is quietly stripping carbon dioxide out of the air you are breathing. It is day 61 of the patrol. You have not seen the sun since the first week, and you will not see it for another month. And yet, you just slept. Properly slept, for about 6.5 hours. Your body has no natural reason left to know when to do that. So how does it know? That is exactly what we are going to find out today. Hi, my name is Jack, and this is Life at Sea. Now, to understand how anyone sleeps down there, you first have to understand what kind of boat we are talking about, because this is not the diesel submarine from the old war films surfacing every night to run her engines and gulp down fresh air. We are talking about modern nuclear submarines, which means the American Ohio and Virginia classes and the Royal Navy's Vanguard and Astute boats. These are vessels that make their own power, distill their own fresh water, and generate their own oxygen, which means the only real limits on how long they stay under are how much food is packed into the hull and how much the crew can take. Traditionally, that is around 90 days. Increasingly, it is a good deal longer, and every one of those days, somebody has to sleep. So let us start with what actually happens to a human being who does not see the sun for 3 months. Start with the body, because the body is the problem. Almost everything your system uses to decide when to be awake gets taken away the moment the hatch shuts. There is no daylight and no sunset. There is no temperature swing between afternoon and midnight, and no weather at all. The air is a constant engineered thing, held at the same temperature and the same humidity for the entire patrol. You lose the sound of the outside world too. A submarine on patrol is working hard not to be heard, so there is no wave slap, no wind, and none of the noise that tells a sailor on a surface ship what kind of night it is. What replaces it is your own vessel. You hear ventilation, pumps, and the hum of whichever compartment you sleep in. It holds the same pitch and the same volume, hour after hour, and it never tells you what time it is. That background is not harmless either. Across Navy berthing spaces, noise, temperature, bedding, and light are the most common habitability complaints, and sailors who report more of them show higher rates of insomnia and worse sleep quality. Then there is the space itself. Berths are stacked 3 high, each one about 180 centimeters long, 60 wide, and 50 tall, which means you genuinely cannot sit upright in your own bed. A thin curtain is the only privacy you get, and everything you brought with you has to fit in a small locker underneath the mattress. That is your entire personal territory for 3 months. It is not your cabin, and it is not even your corner. It is just that. On the tighter boats, it is not even exclusively yours. Hot racking means 2 or 3 sailors share the same bunk on alternating watch rotations. You climb out at the start of your watch, somebody else climbs in, and the sheets are still warm from you. That is exactly where the name comes from, and it is not a modern indignity either. Crews were doing it aboard submarines a century ago, and it was standard practice throughout the Second World War. Every cubic foot given over to living space is a cubic foot that cannot hold something the submarine was built to carry. Now add the AIR. Oxygen on a nuclear boat is manufactured, pulled out of seawater by electrolysis. Carbon dioxide has to be actively removed using a chemical called monoethanolamine, usually just called amine. The atmosphere on a submerged boat runs well above the carbon dioxide levels you would accept ashore, with the recommended 90-day limit set at around 0.8%, roughly 20 times ordinary air. And amine vapor leaks out of the scrubbers into everything porous on board, into skin, clothing, paper, and bedding. Ask any old submariner what the boat smells like, and they will tell you it is a smell you carry home in your kit for weeks. So that is the environment. There is no sun, no silence, no space, and no fresh air, and you may well be renting your bed by the shift. And here is something a lot of people do not realize. All of that turns out to be the easier half of the problem. All of which brings us to the watch bill, and to a day that is not really a day. For decades, the single biggest obstacle to sleep on a nuclear submarine was not the rack or the noise. It was the clock. From the early days of the nuclear force, boats ran an 18-hour cycle, 6 hours on watch followed by 12 off. At any given moment, thousands of crewmen were living on an activity cycle dramatically different from the 24-hour day. An 18-hour day does not divide into a 24-hour body. Every cycle, your watch slid 6 hours earlier. You never woke at the same time twice. For 3 months, with no daylight to correct against. And the data was alarming. Fleet analysis of watch standards on that schedule projected performance effectiveness falling below 70% on watch by day 5 and below 50% by day 8. For context, 70% is roughly the impairment of a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08. So the submarine force did something about it. The 24-hour day was mandated as the standard under normal operations, and crucially, boats were not told which structure to use. It could be 2 12-hour watches, 3 8s or 4 6s, whatever suits the vessel, so long as it adds up to 24. Measured on the new schedule, on-watch effectiveness averaged 86%, and sailors were sleeping around 6.5 hours a day. Honestly, that is a lovely piece of problem solving because it cost almost nothing. It needed no new hardware and no refit. They fixed the sleep of an entire submarine force by fixing the arithmetic of the day. Next comes the rack, the curtain, and a night that has to be manufactured. The second system is light, and this is where the boat starts actively lying to your brain on your behalf. Berthing runs under dim, red lighting, and if the boat is somewhere sensitive, spaces can be rigged for black entirely, partly to stop light escaping through the periscope, and partly to let the crew sleep. On the older boats, a third of the crew was asleep at any moment, so berthing was kept in more or less permanent night. That was the traditional answer. The modern one is more deliberate. Because submariners historically lived with circadian disruption at sea, the Navy has run trials pairing the 24-hour watch bill with light sources of different color temperatures. In plain terms, cooler, blue-heavy light where people are meant to be awake, warm and dim where they are meant to be winding down. It is a sunrise and a sunset, built out of light fittings. Then there is the curtain, which sounds trivial and absolutely is not. These are heavy, flame-retardant screens on a metal rail. Pulled across, they seal you in, give day sleepers their darkness, and muffle the hum of machinery. Inside there is a small, low-wattage reading light. That curtain is the only door most submariners have, and any experienced watchstander will tell you that respecting somebody else's is close to sacred, because it is all that stands between a sleeping man and 130 colleagues. And that brings us to the boat that keeps the same time no matter where it is. Different navies have reached the same conclusion by different routes. The French Navy has been running a fully manufactured day for years, and we know how well it works because they measured it. During a 70-day patrol aboard the ballistic missile submarine Le Téméraire, with no contact home at all, the lighting was scheduled to reproduce a 24-hour cycle. Sleep was recorded on day 21 and again on day 51, and it did not significantly vary in length or quality. Sit with that for a second. 30 days apart, halfway through a patrol, sealed off from the world, and the crew's sleep held steady, which is genuinely remarkable because the ocean above them had nothing to do with it. The boat itself was convincing enough. The Royal Navy faces the same physics with a much longer stopwatch. A Vanguard-class boat recently came into Faslane after 205 days away, breaking the previous record of 203, and every one of the last 9 deterrent patrols has run beyond 5 months. It is the same manufactured day, held together for twice as long. Now let us talk about the small things that make a coffin-sized rack somewhere you can actually rest. Systems get you most of the way, rituals get you the rest of it, and this is the part that makes a boat feel human. Start with the locker under your mattress, usually just called the coffin. It is only about 6 to 8 inches deep, which forces an almost surgical discipline about folding and packing. Every submariner develops their own layout, and they can find any item in it in the dark, because most of the time they are finding it in the dark. Alongside that, the standard personal kit, a decent set of earplugs, a small fan clipped near the head of the rack to move the air and add a bit of white noise, and photographs taped to the inside of the curtain where nobody else has to see them. Most old hands will tell you plainly that the photographs go inside the curtain, never outside. That space is yours. Then there is food, which on a submarine is not really about food. 4 meals a day get served, including mid-rats, the midnight rations for the crew coming off the middle watch. Fresh fruit, vegetables, and milk last around 2 weeks before the boat shifts over to canned and frozen. Baking is treated as a genuine point of pride, so fresh bread and pastries keep appearing long after the salad has gone. Many boats do steak and lobster on a Sunday, and the logic behind all of it is simple. When you cannot see the sun, cannot go outside, and cannot ring home, good food becomes the single biggest morale lever anyone has. That Sunday meal is doing something else too. It is a marker. On a boat with no daylight, the crew builds a calendar out of whatever it can. There is steak on Sunday. There's a film night. There's the halfway point of the patrol, which gets celebrated on almost every boat in some form, because from there, the numbers start going down instead of up. And then there is the family gram, which is the one that gets people. Because submarines hold radio silence, personal messages from home are severely rationed. The Royal Navy allows Trident crews twice weekly messages of 60 words or 1 weekly message of 120. Every message is vetted before transmission and approved by the boat's commanding officer. Coded messages are not permitted, and bad news is not passed to the crew without approval. 60 words is your entire connection to your family for the week. Ask anyone who has done a full deterrent patrol, and they will tell you that people read those 60 words 20 or 30 times, lying in the dark behind the curtain, working out what was meant by the phrasing. And nobody on board misses the implication of that vetting rule either. If something has gone badly wrong at home, you may well be the last person to know. Now look, this would not be a Life at Sea video if we were not completely straight with you about the other side of all this. The systems work. They do not make it fine. In one study of military submariners measured before, during, and after a mission, sleep duration fell by a median of 55 minutes compared with baseline. Sleep quality was rated lower, and sleepiness at the start of shifts went up. All of it recovered afterwards, but during the patrol, it was real. Interestingly, higher job satisfaction correlated with better subjective sleep during the mission, which tells you something about how much of this is mental as well as physiological. The crews who feel the work matters seem to sleep better on the same schedule, in the same rack, breathing the same air.
Even on the improved 24-hour schedule, mood measurably declined by the end of patrol, alongside sailors skipping meals and skipping exercise. That last part compounds over a career. In a study of 53 American submariners assessed before and after a 3-month patrol, 62% had a body fat percentage of 25 or above before they even deployed, and of that group, 30% met the criteria for metabolic syndrome. Confined space, limited kit, rotating shifts, and reduced sleep do not combine kindly. The AIR is an honest concern too. Reviews of submarine indoor air consistently report elevated carbon dioxide, volatile organic compounds, particulates and bioaerosols, and current controls, scrubbers, particulate filtration, and activated carbon only partially address the full range of what accumulates during prolonged submergence. And then the part no equipment touches. You are never alone and you are never outside. For 90 days, and now often a good deal longer, you cannot step out for 5 minutes. You cannot ring anyone. There is no walking it off, no drive, no pub, no closing a door behind you. If you have fallen out with somebody, you will still be eating 3 feet from them tomorrow, and the day after that, and for 11 more weeks. Children are born while boats are on patrol. Parents die while boats are on patrol. Relationships end in 60 carefully vetted words, or worse, they end and nobody tells you until the boat comes back up and you walk down the gangway into a life that has quietly rearranged itself without you. That is not a footnote to submarine life. For a lot of crews, it is the hardest single thing about it, harder than the rack, harder than the schedule, harder than the air. So where is all of this heading? The pressure now is coming from patrol length. The Vanguard class was originally designed with food stores and freezers to support a maximum of 3 to 4 months at sea. Boats are routinely exceeding that, which means for the first couple of months, stores get packed into every available space, and the passageway decks are literally covered in canned food. Because the vessel makes its own power, water and oxygen, endurance is theoretically almost indefinite. The real limits are stores and people, and of those two, it is increasingly the people. The Royal Navy's answer to that is structural. Each Vanguard runs 2 entirely separate crews, port and starboard, who alternate, so while one is under the Atlantis, the other is on leave or training at Faslane. It is the only way to keep a boat continuously at sea without burning through the sailors who man her. That thinking is now shaping the hardware as well. Habitability, which used to be the thing you settled last after weapons, sensors, and propulsion, has become a genuine operational factor, because a fatigued crew is a less capable crew, and the evidence on that is no longer arguable. The Dreadnought class, replacing the Vanguards in the 2030s, is being built with that baked in from the start rather than fitted around everything else. Even the scrubbers are moving. Solid amine systems have been trialed at sea specifically because they cut the risk of amine vapor getting into the boat's atmosphere compared with the older liquid plants. That reads like an engineering upgrade. It is really a sleeping and breathing upgrade, and it is the kind of change that only happens once somebody accepts that the crew is a system too, with tolerances of its own. So here is what I keep coming back to. We tend to assume submariners sleep down there through sheer toughness, that they simply grit their teeth and endure it. They do not. What they actually do is far more interesting. They build a day. They construct a convincing artificial 24 hours out of a watch bill, a set of light fittings, a heavy curtain, a small fan, and a stake on Sunday, and then they defend it, night after manufactured night, until the hatch opens again. Nobody down there beats the environment. The environment is not beatable. What they beat is the drift, the slow slide of a human being coming unmoored from time, and they do it with a routine so deliberately built that a body with nothing left to navigate by will still lie down and sleep on cue. The environment never becomes survivable. The routine does. And that is true of an awful lot of life at sea, not just the boats that never surface. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to Life at Sea for a lot more content just like this. And if you have ever served in boats or waited at home for a familygram to come back the other way, drop it in the comments below. I would genuinely love to hear it. Thank you for watching.